Imagine walking through the bustling streets of Lekki. Lagos bright lights, luxury cars, laughter spilling from nightclubs. But behind this glittering facade, another sound lurks. The cries of mothers, the screams of the wounded, the silence of the dead. This is not just a story about cults. This is a story about a war fought in shadows, a war that has claimed hundreds of lives in one of Nigeria's wealthiest neighborhoods. Tonight, we peel back the mask of Lekki, the cult killings that the world tried to ignore. And the truth is darker than you think. To understand Lekki's tragedy, we must start at the roots of cultism in Nigeria. Born in the universities of the 1950s, cults like the Pirates' Confraternity once stood for freedom and resistance. But over decades, splinter groups emerged: the Black Axe, the Buccaneers, the Vikings. What began as intellectual brotherhoods devolved into violent street gangs, each claiming territory, each demanding blood. By the early 2000s, these cults had spilled out of campuses and into Nigeria's streets. In Lagos and Port Harcourt and Benin City, cult clashes left trails of bodies. And then in the 2010s, they found fertile ground in Lekki, a place of wealth, but also of inequality, where luxury estates stand just meters away from sprawling slums. In Lekki, cults evolved into something deadlier. This wasn't just about pride or rituals anymore. It was about power, territory, money, and it would not take long before the streets began to run red. On a humid night in 2019, Lekki residents woke to screams. A cult clash had erupted between rival groups. Aiye and Aiye. Witnesses recalled the chaos. Machetes glinting under streetlights, gunshots ringing through the estate, bodies lying motionless on the ground. By dawn, at least 5 young men were dead. But this was only one of many clashes. In Ikota, in Aiye, in Jakande, Lekki turned into a battlefield. Local newspapers began reporting weekly killings. Headlines screamed, "Cult war in Lekki claims more lives." The police tried to reassure residents, but fear spread like wildfire. Families stopped letting their children walk at night. Shopkeepers closed early. The glamorous Lekki everyone admired on Instagram was hiding a nightmare in plain sight. Behind the violence lay stories of young lives pulled into cultism. Some joined willingly, seduced by promises of brotherhood, wealth, or protection. Others were forced, beaten until they swore allegiance. For many, poverty was the doorway. In Lekki's poorer communities, cults offered what the government did not: a sense of belonging, a chance to earn quick money, a shield against bullies. But the cost of membership was often blood. Parents watched their sons disappear into the night, returning days later with scars, cash, or not at all. Some mothers begged police for help, only to be told there was nothing to be done without evidence. Cultists operated in shadows, and witnesses stayed silent for fear of retaliation. Lekki was not supposed to be like this. It was marketed as the new face of Lagos, a city of skyscrapers, beaches, tech hubs, and mansions. But just beneath the glamour, cults carved out their own empire. And with every clash, Lekki's streets whispered a chilling truth. Wealth could not buy safety. Luxury could not erase blood. And the killings continued. The more authorities tried to suppress the violence, the more it spread. Police patrols swept through Lekki at night, but cultists had grown smarter. They knew the alleyways, the shortcuts, the abandoned buildings where they could vanish in seconds. What shocked residents most was the boldness. These weren't secret midnight rituals in hidden forests. These were broad daylight killings. In traffic jams, outside schools, in front of churches. Cultists sent a message. No place was off limits. In Aiye, a young man, known by friends as Chima, was dragged from a tricycle and hacked to death in full view of commuters. His crime? Refusing to switch allegiance from one cult to another. In Ikate, another victim was shot outside a bar, the killers leaving calmly as terrified customers crouched under tables. By 2020, Lekki had become a war zone. A BBC Africa investigation revealed that cult killings accounted for dozens of murders in Lagos annually, and in Lekki, the death toll rose almost monthly. Behind the numbers were grieving families, mothers who refused to speak on camera, fathers who buried their sons in silence, too afraid to name their killers. For some families, the pain came not from strangers but from within. Many parents admitted that their children had once been bright students, athletes, or aspiring entrepreneurs, but then they disappeared into the world of cultism. Take Musa, a 19-year-old student who dreamed of becoming a tech developer. Friends said he was recruited, at a party promised protection and a sense of belonging. Within months, he was skipping school, carrying weapons and demanding levies from shopkeepers. His mother recalled the last time she saw him. He came home late at night, blood on his shirt, refusing to explain. Weeks later, he was found dead in a gutter after a clash. These are the untold stories of Lekki. The sons lost to a war their parents never signed up for. But why Lekki? Why would cults turn one of Nigeria's most glamorous districts into a killing field? The answer lies in money and territory. Lekki is divided between luxury estates and sprawling informal settlements. Where money flows, crime follows. Cults saw Lekki not just as a battlefield but as a gold mine. They fought for control over motor parks, land sales, and extortion rackets. In some neighborhoods, cult groups demanded protection fees from traders, artisans, and even landlords. Those who refused risked arson, robbery, or worse. It wasn't uncommon to hear stories of shopkeepers stabbed, homes set on fire, or entire families fleeing after threats, and yet these stories rarely made national news. Lekki was still presented as Lagos's jewel, its dark underbelly hidden beneath glossy billboards. Then came the turning point, a single clash that forced even the wealthy elite of Lekki to admit the crisis was spiraling out of control. In late 2021, two rival groups, Aiye and Eiye, collided during a birthday party in Lekki Phase 1. Witnesses say machetes, axes, and even guns were drawn. By the end of the night, multiple young men lay dead, their blood staining the streets just meters away from luxury apartments worth millions. This was no longer a problem confined to the slums. This was violence at the very doorstep of Lagos's elite. And for the first time, Lekki's wealthy residents began to realize they too were trapped in a war they thought they could ignore. The clash at Lekki Phase 1 was a wake-up call. Suddenly, cult killings were no longer whispered rumors confined to inner streets. They were headline news. Residents demanded action. Police promised crackdowns. Politicians made speeches. But the violence didn't stop. In fact, it spread. The more pressure cults faced, the more ruthless they became. Lekki's nights were filled with fear rumors of hit lists, revenge attacks, and boys with machetes prowling the streets. Parents warned their children not to linger after dark. Taxi drivers refused to enter certain areas. And yet, despite arrests and police raids, the killings continued. Behind the scenes, darker forces fueled the chaos. Cults weren't just fighting for territory, they were being used. Politicians, desperate for power, turned to cultists as foot soldiers during elections. The Minana investigative report revealed how cult groups in Lagos were mobilized by powerful figures, promised money, weapons, and protection from prosecution. When elections ended, the cults didn't return their weapons. Instead, they turned them on each other and on innocent residents. This was not random violence. This was a system where power, politics, and poverty intertwined, and Lekki streets became the battleground. The human cost was devastating. Every clash left not just bodies but broken families. Mothers clutching photographs of sons, refusing to believe they were gone. Fathers who admitted in hushed voices that their sons had joined cults because they felt invisible, powerless, forgotten. For many of these young men, cultism offered something they couldn't find elsewhere: a sense of identity, brotherhood, and belonging. But the price was always blood. One survivor described his initiation: forced to swear oaths, drink blood, and prove loyalty by committing violence. He said, once you enter, there is no going back. If you try to leave, they will find you. They will kill you. These words echoed across Lekki, as more families realized they had lost their sons to a machine they could not stop. The killings escalated in cycles of revenge. If one group lost a member, they retaliated twice as hard. If an Aiye boy was murdered, Aiye would respond with machetes in the dead of night. If Vikings were ambushed, buccaneers would storm rival territories the next day. And so Lekki lived in perpetual fear. Residents described waking to the sound of screams, only to find bodies dumped by the roadside. Even children became traumatized witnesses, watching men slaughtered outside their schools or dragged from motorcycles on their way to work. The violence carved deep scars into Lekki's identity. A place once advertised as Nigeria's future modern, vibrant, secure, had become a theater of blood. By 2022, the number of cult killings in Lagos surged, and Lekki was always on the list of hotspots. Police admitted they were overwhelmed. Arrests were made, but prosecutions were weak. Cases collapsed. Witnesses stayed silent, too afraid of retaliation. For every cultist jailed, 3 more emerged young, desperate and ready to kill. The cycle seemed endless. Lekki's beaches still attracted tourists. Its estates still sold for millions. Its skyline still shone with promise. But beneath the glamour, an invisible war raged on, a war of machetes and oaths, of young men lost to the darkness, of families shattered. And for those who lived there, one question lingered every night: who will be next? By late 2022, Lekki's cult killings had left an undeniable mark. Families mourned in silence. Journalists dug for answers, and the police fought a war they struggled to contain. But the question was no longer just about Lekki, it was about Nigeria itself. Cultism had spread far beyond universities, far beyond poor neighborhoods. It had become a nationwide plague, one that linked poverty, politics, and organized crime. And in Lekki, the consequences were impossible to ignore. The tragedy of Lekki is not just about the deaths, it's about what those deaths represent. Young men who should have been doctors, engineers, musicians lost. Communities living in fear. A city forced to face its darkest truths. But even in the darkness, there are glimmers of resistance. Community leaders have begun speaking out, risking their lives to confront cult violence. NGOs are stepping in to give young men alternatives, jobs, mentorship, hope. Parents are forming neighborhood watch groups, determined to protect their children. The fight is not over, but it has begun. For the world outside Nigeria, Lekki is often seen as a symbol of wealth and progress. But for those who live here, it is also a reminder of how fragile that progress can be. Behind the high walls of estates and the glitter of nightclubs lies a silent war that has taken too many lives. And if Lekki teaches us anything, it is this: when inequality festers, when young men are left with nothing but anger and hopelessness, violence will always find a home. So the next time you see the bright lights of Lekki, remember beneath the beauty lies blood. And until the cycle is broken, the question will remain: who will be next?
This is Whispers in Africa. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the true crime documentary. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and turn on the notification bell icon, so you'll be notified when we upload a new video. You can also tell us what you think about this documentary in the comments section. I hope to see you in our next video. Bye.